read our favorite introduction to meetings. This meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with state of California executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Zoom is being utilized for this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after the meeting. We will be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. Committee and staff are participating from remote locations, practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by use of Zoom as noted on the city's website and as noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak to the Climate Action Committee may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way to provide public comment. All right, Carrie, do you mind doing the roll call?
Or give me just a second to put the roster.
I could barely hear you.
Yeah, your voice didn't come through.
All right, is this better?
Yes.
That's better.
All right. Okay, we will start out with Sarah Gurney,
I'm here.
Kathy Ottinger. I do not see Kathy yet. Diana Rich, we know, is out of town this week. Jasenia Garcia.
I'm here.
Woody Hastings.
Here.
Sunali Sikhan. Sunali here yet?
No, but I know she plans to come.
Oh, okay. Deborah Burns.
Here.
Lisa Pierce.
Here.
Kenna Lee.
Here.
Joshua Somene.
Here, thank you.
Dina Allen. Dina, I think you're muted, but I can see you waving frantically, so
We
we'll
can
say
see
you're
you.
here.
There she is.
Alex Goodman
Here. Hi, guys.
and Jerry Glazer.
I am here.
And we have more than 7, so you do have a quorum today.
Wonderful. Lisa was going to bring an inspiration for us today.
Yeah, so aside from the amazing African music I've been listening to the last few days, which has been super motivating to get me moving, I want to say a couple of words about Boulder, Colorado. It seems like we've had a big challenge all along of how to help renters become able to live in homes that are more energy efficient. And they passed a carbon tax to tax themselves. And in 2010, they adopted a thing called, what did they call it again? Something, smart regs, kind of weird name, but anyway, that with incentives and rebates and a lot of support from the city, they required all landlords to make their properties more energy and water efficient within 8 years. And so by 2018, all rental properties in Boulder, Colorado were very energy efficient. And I just think that's really inspiring that they were actually able to pull that off. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Joshua, do you have a review of action items from last time?
There was not much that was formal in terms of action item last time. Let's see. No, just notes about the public launch meeting for the Climate Action Framework, which a meeting already happened planning that. The survey in progress for the Climate Action Framework that I hope everybody received already and had a chance to respond to. And Energy Working Group presenting today, I believe. That's about it.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda today?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. I'm just kind of checking in on the status of the financing proposals that we've kind of been putting forward over the last year. And one of those was requiring the city to, or the city was going to come back with a consultant to help with revenue enhancement strategies. And I'm trying to find out where that is in the process. I'm not sure if a new RFP has been put out by the city or when that's expected to be put out. So I'm just trying to find out because, you know, eventually we really may want to get something on the ballot, but there is a few months lead time to make that happen. So the longer this drags out, we may miss the whole 2022 cycle if that's something that we're at all thinking about in terms of the utility users tax. So just hoping to find out what's going on with that. Thank you.
Does our council member or our planning director have any response to that? Go ahead, Council Member Gurney.
Well, I'll say the little I know, and maybe Carrie can help. Steve, what I last heard is that the consultant the city knows and has an established relationship with and was hoping to work with, declined the work because their schedule had been filled up by other cities because we were too slow in their scheduling to get the RFP out and get their work. And I believe city staff is looking for someone else. I don't know if they're reissued the RFP or what, but the 2024 expiration of the UUT is certainly on my mind. And I believe we have until an August deadline for a citizen committee to put that on the ballot. The council will not be the active campaigners on that one, because I believe we can't by law, but we could motivate a citizen committee. And I think, Steve, I already asked you, were you interested? Please, please. So, Carrie, can you help with any more specific information about the consultant?
Sure.
Status?
Well, I can't, but I did just email Anna just to see if she could give us an update by time during this meeting. And in terms of a couple of the other funding components, I can actually review that in my department report too, if it's easier.
Sure.
More formal format. It's agendized, so I can talk a little bit more about it, I guess.
Any other comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda today? All right, so moving on, do we have any statements of conflict of interest by members of the committee? I don't see anyone waving at me. All right, so Carrie, can proceed with the planning department report.
All right, so I'll actually start off with that component for Steve. So a couple of the funding items, the next week's city council meeting will have the mid-year budget discussions. I believe the staff reports and packet will be released later this week, or it will be, I'm not sure when exactly, I believe tomorrow. The grant writer request was submitted, which came from this committee. So that was submitted for inclusion in that discussion. It would be great if there, that isn't, we did sort of go back and forth, and thank you. I think it was Lisa Pierce who helped me with a couple of things, that's not necessarily a planning department person, because it might be doing infrastructure, clean infrastructure grants or things with the recovery funding and whatnot. So if council does choose to do that, they'll have to also direct staff in terms of where that position or where that RFP should reside, and how that should be handled. But as I noted, mid-year budget will be next Tuesday. So if there's someone from this group who wants to attend and speak to that at public comment, of course, that would be helpful in the council's understanding and deliberations, I'm sure. And then the other two items regarding the utility user tax and whatnot, I did talk with city admin about the best way to bring that forward. And it actually, outside of the revenue enhancement consultant, one of the recommendations was to, because it's not a mid-year budget, and as Councilmember Gurney noted, the council can't actually, support a campaign other than whatever process for the ballot. But to have the CAC bring that in their next quarterly discussion, which I believe is March 1st, Canada, you reminded me, not for February 1st, to bring those items forward. They're already written up, but just to include that in the report and discussion with council at that time as a way of getting that back in front of council in a very deliberate way. And then that will be agendized and council can interact and discuss on that item. Actually, both of those items, I believe it's the user tax as well as the charter city initiative, which is another huge list that the council would need to seriously consider. Other news, I am so happy to share, and thank you, Woody, for attending. Our Planning Commission unanimously approved recommending the gas station ban to City Council. It was wonderful to have Woody there, and we had a couple other members from the public, Sonny Galbraith, and a few others who supported it, and we received a couple of letters of support. I'm even happier to announce that I did run into the planning manager for Roanoke Park this morning on the trail. He lives in Sebastopol. Early morning dog walks we pass in the fog of the morning. And he said that their council also voted to move forward with banning gas stations, which is, they didn't know which way that was going to go, but it was also unanimous. So that's, since they're a huge city and right on 101, that's, no offense to Sebastopol, but for the county, that would be a huge move. So that project's on their own track, but they essentially did a moratorium until they could bring it back. It'll probably be going back to that council later in March. Our gas station ban is scheduled for March 1st with the council, so we should still get there first. And then we do have the Calder Creek naturalization project going to City Council for consideration of 2 preferred options that the Planning Commission had next Tuesday. And that is the first item on the agenda, so it should be held hopefully fairly early in the evening before the budget hearings. And I think that's it for my department update for items that are going through Planning Commission and whatnot. Oh, and I'll let Phoebe talk about her presentation of the Planning Commission last night as well.
Great. Were you wanting Phoebe to talk about that now or in her report later?
I think she's got an agenda item, so I don't need to talk about it in this.
Okay. Great. And Councilmember Gurney, do you have anything to report?
Thank you. Well, following Carrie, she usually mentions the things that I would mention.
Lisa had a
Upcoming,
question.
pardon me?
Jerry, I didn't
Oh,
see
excuse
Jerry's
me.
hand.
No, Lisa has a question.
Oh, I didn't see Lisa's hand.
Oh, excuse me. So I am just curious about the charter city proposal. I wasn't aware that anything like that was being presented. So I'm just curious about that. Like who brought that up and who's pushing it?
So this was in the letter the CAC submitted to the planning department to pass on to council.
It was a possibility. Yeah. So that was, one option. So anyway, I'm excited that that's on the table. I just wasn't aware that it was being considered. So thanks.
Well, so maybe I should step back and clarify. I submitted that letter, which included we had direction from the CAC that they really wanted to submit the request for the grant writer RFP for the mid-year budget. So I just submitted the whole memo to city manager and assistant city manager. And I said, and the finance director, I said, the first section was requested to include as a mid-year budget request. The others, what is the appropriate way? I asked the question, what's the appropriate way for the CAC to bring this to council? And the recommendation was the best way for the CAC to bring that forward was in one of their quarterly reports. So it has not been discussed by council, and I don't know if they will have, they have a lot on their plate, I know, given the number of meetings and the lateness of all of the meetings that have been happening today. So I don't know if that's something they're going to want to take on or not. I didn't mean to speak that they were interested or not. They haven't even heard about it yet. So that's a CAC responsibility to bring to the council.
All right. Thank you.
And Jerry, you're muted.
I just noticed that Steve Brown is not here in the meeting with us, and I know he was planning on joining. Did you share the link with him?
I did not.
No, Carrie.
Oh,
I did not know if he was attending or not either.
Yeah, he was
I can
planning
do
on
so right
attending.
now.
Okay, great.
and just to follow up on Lisa's point, it seems that this, our next report out to council, I will need some help from the funding group to make sure that we're tight and really asking for what we want and presenting in a comprehensive and understandable way, because I need some help with that. Woody, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah. So it sounds like, if I heard everything right, Tuesday, March 1st is going to be kind of a big night. I can be there. I'm on the funding committee. I can be there. So it looks like 3 things: Charter City. Is that the CAC report and gas station ordinance?
So to be clear, the Charter City and the utility tax will not be discussed next Tuesday. That would need to go to council on March 1st as part of the CAC's quarterly report. That is not on the agenda for next Tuesday.
For next Tuesday, but I'm talking about on March 1st. I can be there and for the report out from the funding.
Okay.
committee. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
And that will be the gas station then, as
Good,
currently
okay.
scheduled.
Thank you.
As well.
And that can move based on the agenda setting. It's just what we need in terms of prepping the final ordinance and getting the notification of the newspapers and the existing gas station owners and all of that.
All right. Okay, back to you, Councilmember Gurney, for your report out from council.
All right, I'll do that. I'm sorry, I was looking down and I didn't see Jerry pointing out Lisa there, but I think we've got everybody in who needed to comment so far. So I'm good to go. Like I started to say, following Carrie, she usually has said most everything I would say. The big items coming up will be the Ives Park renovation and the mid-year budget review. Both of those have a number of controversial items, but I can tell you from my email, the Ives Park renovation options have raised a controversial issue of what to do with the ball field. I'm just reporting how many emails I've received that are all public information that are about preserving the ball field, just so y'all know if the case that's of significance to you. I will add that the council, I would say, made history today. We had a public meeting that was called a council retreat. That was only the second time in 17 years that as a council member, I have participated in a scheduled retreat. The first one was a private meeting, sort of eons ago in those 17 years. we had all voluntarily taken a personality diagnostic test that was designed for leaders. And we talked about the results of that test. That took 3 hours. It was very interesting. It's all recorded in case anyone's curious what our personality types are, but I imagine it's obvious to everybody watching us. So it was very helpful. The idea was that the information would help us learn about each other, ourselves and each other, and how to get along better. And all I can say is, with this notion that government is dysfunctional, isn't this like the most important thing we should always be doing, is figuring out how to be an effective body and how to optimize our results for our community. So I was very grateful to learn what I did about myself and about my colleagues. I think we'll be a good team and an improved team. Thank you, Kenneth.
Great, thank you. So moving on to our regular agenda. Jasenia, you were going to present the art project submission form.
Yeah. Okay. Should I share screen or?
Yeah, go ahead.
The host has disabled it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Dina put the link in the chat.
Just sending, I just missed making you a co-host. You're a co-host now, so you should be able to share your screen.
Awesome. There's. So here's the form on my end. This is obviously the edited version. I don't know if I can. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is the submission form. We can change it. It's not done by any means, but it is as comprehensive as it's gonna get, I guess you could say. Yeah. So there's not a ton of questions. I pretty much just took what Sonali already had and formatted it into the Google form, and then the responses will show up right here. So.
And do you guys have a timeline for opening that up to the public?
I believe that as long as we all don't have objections to it, as long as there's no changes, it can be open to the public, and we'll be doing rolling submissions pretty much from now until the foreseeable future. So yeah, not a ton.
Oh, that looks great. Does anyone have questions or concerns to share with Jasenia? Go ahead, Dina.
The two links that kind of got smushed together, there's actually two different links I put in the chat. Holly has been working on the city website, our climate action page, and then a child page, she called it, of the upcycled art project. And so those links go to that. And people can use the Google form to apply for doing an art piece, or there's also one that they can just download and print out, and that would be connected to the website too. And the project is going to go out in the city newsletter and in whatever other media that Holly and her team send it out in. And so it's open now. And if you know any creative people or artists, it would be great to share this so we can get some submissions.
Great. Deborah.
I would just like to add that it would be wonderful if anybody has any, if there's a social media post, I don't know if Jasenia or if someone does one, and then we could share a social media post and we could have it on the downtown and anybody can share it just to kind of get some energy going behind it.
Absolutely. Anyone else? I'm afraid this is not the most social media focused group that I've ever come across, but
That's why I said Jasenia, because I bet she can make a really nice social media post. But if you don't want to, I'll take it on Jasenia. So just let me know.
No, I can do it, but I think you should do it too because we'll reach 2 different circles.
Well, I mean, I'll put yours out, but I'll use your
Yeah.
like so that we keep it cohesive. It's the same one. Yeah, we can just put it out all over if you want to make it and send it to the group.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Actually, let's talk after there is a how-to social media. So it needs to go to Holly and to Carrie first. And then if they approve it, we can from that point send it out. Okay.
Thanks for letting me know. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Well, now just to add another layer, I'm supposed to be the one that sends things to Holly, so she doesn't get it from
That's true. I did ask you to do that, Dina, and I'm the one who asked you to do that. That's true.
Yeah.
It would be better to have one point of purchase instead of things coming from a million different places. So Jasenia, can you send it to Dina, who can then send it to them, who can then send it?
Okay, yeah, I can.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, Lisa and then Sonali.
I just wanted to say it looks really good. It's really clear and good job.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sonali?
Yes, thank you for taking that on and knocking it out. I'm wondering, can we do a little formatting and put a graphic in it? So like
It just needs to be a small graphic like this, like a rectangle, if that makes sense. Because that's the only ones that fit in the Google Forms for some reason. So yeah, I was thinking.
What the dimension is? Oh wait, unless you already know. What were you thinking?
I'm not sure what the dimension is, no. But I was thinking we could take the top part of the submission form that you made and put that in there because it has the cute like through the looking or interconnectivity through the looking glass thing around the world. And I think that would be cute to put in there.
Let's do it.
All right. And Deborah, is your hand up again?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you guys that if you do put an image in there, it has to go to Dina, go to Carrie, go to Holly to get approved. But since that, sorry, I'm just trying to keep.
I think we're talking about the submission form, but
yeah, everything has to be approved. But since everything on that submission form has been approved, and if you use the image, they've already approved that, you're good. So you can use it on anything you want once it's been approved. So you're good. You're good. Just trying to keep city,
all these processes. I appreciate that someone is paying attention. All right. So I think I'm excited to move on. I'm wondering if we want to reorder. Carrie, what time do you have to leave?
I need to leave at 4:30.
Okay. Phoebe, how long do you think your report out is today?
pretty brief.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do you. And then I just want to make sure we get to the reach. You know what? Never mind. Phoebe, I'm going to have you wait until after we do the energy working group reach code, because I think it's really important that Carrie be here for that discussion.
Great, thanks.
If that's okay with energy to move into the now position.
You want energy in the now position?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if I can get clear here. I'll share my screen as soon as I find the right screen.
Here, perfect.
Good timing. Oh, there it is.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for joining us. We're just now starting to the reach code discussion.
And am I sharing the screen or not?
You are, but it's a white page right now.
It's a white page. That's what it shows here too. When I shared it, just a second. I don't know why it did that. Just a second. Let's unshare. That shouldn't have been a white screen. Let's see if I can just share. I give different, I didn't want to share the whiteboard. Oh, I see what it did. There we go. Let's try that.
That's
that
better.
look?
Yep.
Much better. Okay, very good. Okay. And Steve Pierce, take yourself off mute so that you can jump in whenever you want. Steve Brown's got his off mute already, so he can always jump in when he wants. Let me start off and say, this is what we've learned so far. Some of it's correct. Most of it's correct, I hope. Steve Brown will correct us when we're wrong. If you look at the picture of Steve in his office on his right, you'll see a stack of books. One of them is the Title 24 for 2019. And then the second stack behind there is the Title 24 for 2016. And Title 24 is about to be updated. So we'll go through all of this. So what is Title 24? It was first implemented in 1978, going back that far. It's the energy code and design code for buildings in California. It's to reduce waste and unnecessary energy consumption in new buildings and updates. It was reinforced in 2007 because of AB 32, which all of us are familiar with. The California Energy Commission is required to update it every 3 years. Basically, if you go through the mechanics of it, they do the update, they submit it for approval. And then after it's approved, then cities have within 6 months to start implementing and enforcing. So for all intents and purposes, the 2022 code goes into effect in 2023. The 2019 code went into effect in 2020. The two sections we care about are Part 6 and Part 11. Part 6 is the energy building standards. Part 11 is Cal Green. It's the Green Building Code. One of the things I picked up in one of the meetings we went to was that what goes into the next code is very much driven, and this is one thing I just want to drill home, very much driven by what cities do. Because the folks who actually put together a Title 24 say, what were the reach codes that everybody has? And is there enough momentum in this direction that we can just put this into Title 24? And you will find this in other places in state legislation, like the plastic bags, styrofoam, and other places. What will the 2022 likely include? The major ones that we care about is encouraging electric heat pump technology, both for hot water and for space heating. Establishing an electric ready requirement with dedicated circuits. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get further down. But basically this says, if you were to do an update, a renovation, or a build, and you want to put in gas, okay, you can put in gas. But you can't put in the gas unless you put all the electric outlets and all the electric service required for electric appliances in exactly the same place. So you're going to have double the cost on installation if you put in gas. You're going to pay for the gas and for the electric. It expands the solar voltaic system and battery storage requirements, mostly for non-residential. In the case of non-residential and for, I believe, government, and for commercial, if you put in solar, you have to put in storage as part of the code. In 2026, you're likely to see this for residential as well. And that has to do with balancing the grid. And it strengthens ventilation standards. And part of that has to do with the fact that the code also keeps tightening up the building so much that no air from outside ever gets into the building. And so you have to have a way to make sure that you have air coming in, but it's energy efficient air coming in and going out. What does it contain? I haven't gone through this except several weeks ago with Steve. So if I hesitate, let me know. I'll try to get it right. It's published by the California Building Standards Commission, and you'll see that they have a role in approving reach codes. It's organized into two basic sections. So one is residential, the other section is non-residential. Our code in 2019, and if you look at the Sebastopol code, you'll find in 2019, Sebastopol removed mention of Cal Green. So here we are trying to be energy efficient. We remove the mention. Well, the reason we probably removed it, and since Carrie wasn't here at the time, I'm not sure she'd have the history. Likely the reason it was removed was in California in 2019, Cal Green has a section called mandatory. That is, every city in California must comply with the mandatory section. You can do more, and they give you a way to do more, but you must comply with the mandatory sections. And you don't have to mention it in your ordinance or in your code, municipal code. There's voluntary measures that can be adopted by local jurisdictions, a REACH code, and then something else we'll talk about here, Tier 1 and Tier 2. If you want to use Tier 1 and Tier 2, these are greater requirements. If you're using Tier 1, one of the quotes I got said, by implementing Tier 1, you're basically 50% better, lower in greenhouse gas emissions than you are with mandatory. If you implement Tier 2, you're net zero. So a city can actually then put in their municipal code, we follow Cal Green Tier 1, and basically you're allowed to do that. You have to say you are following Cal Green after that. You can make modifications. And you can say, except for this and except for that. We've seen this in San Jose. We've seen this in Sunnyvale, and I haven't read the Santa Rosa in detail, but basically it says, we're following this Tier 1, except for these conditions. The current Sebastopol practice, and this is where Steve can jump in, and he corrected us. We follow Cal Green Tier 1, and he inspects based on Tier 1, and he reviews plans based on Tier 1. You know, like I said, practically it produces a 50% reduction over mandatory, according to some of the quotes. I find it hard to believe when I look at the actual things that are in there, because it seems hard to believe that it would be that good. I put this one in here, Steve Pierce. This was one of the quotes we picked up, right?
Right, and that's sort of looking into, you know, oftentimes people say California energy use is so much lower because we have a more moderate climate than a lot of the parts of the country. But even taking that into account in the NRDC, it just shows that we've kind of led the way. And if the rest of the country had been what we'd be doing, we'd be in much better shape in terms of greenhouse gases. So
our buildings and our homes use nearly 70% of California's electricity. But it's only responsible for a quarter of the greenhouse gases. That's because farms and whatever else industry does a lot more in the greenhouse gases. One of the things is that Steve has been enforcing Tier 1. We don't have it in ordinance. So if a contractor came back, as far as I know, they can say, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this. And now, Steve, you haven't run into anybody saying that, right?
No, I have not.
Okay.
We do have one exception that we allow to Tier 1 too. So
okay. So you know, one of the things that we'll talk about later on when we talk about REACH codes, and if we do a REACH code, at the very least, we ought to have an ordinance, those things that we do, so that if Steve wants to say, yes, you're going to do this, there's an ordinance that says, yes, you're going to do this, as opposed to, Steve, I don't want to. The paths that we can take, by the way, and this was early on our slides, we can do nothing and Cal Green mandatory. We can adopt Cal Green in one of the tiers. That doesn't require a CEC approval. And I already covered the other points on this. Or we can implement a crafted REACH code. And a number of cities have done this. Now, if you implement a crafted REACH code, what a REACH code essentially says is, I've done more than Title 24. That's basically it. So if you do anything that's more than Title 24, then it's a REACH code. It requires CEC approval. You have to file. It will also require a review by those who write the code. It requires significant staff time to process and craft. Steve gave us a much lower quote than the ones I actually found on the web. The ones on the web said 6 to 12 months it will take to do a REACH code, getting through your staff. And supposedly, the investor-owned utilities, PG&E, are supposed to provide us technical assistance. And Rcpa also provides technical assistance in devising REACH codes. In putting in a REACH code, you have to demonstrate certain things. Number one, lower energy consumption results than the mandatory. Number two, that anything that you said is cost effective. By the way, through analysis done recently by the state, we can refer to specifying all electric is cost effective. In fact, it costs less to build and operate, actually less to build also, if we do all electric than if somebody puts gas in the building. And it has to be renewed every 3 years. Well, why? Because Cal Green and Part 6 get reviewed and renewed every 3 years. And therefore, you have to resubmit and say, oh, we want to do these things. Maybe you don't need to do them anymore. And many of the things that we want to do are already in Cal Green. Here's some stuff that we have in our code, which we think probably are reach codes. 2 watts of solar installation for every square foot of conditioned space. By the way, that requires more solar than the state requires. So that would be a reach code and should not be enforceable unless we filed. And unless somebody's smiling saying, in 2019, I filed, then we have no leg. The EV charging requirements that are in our zoning for multifamily, I didn't look at them to see if they're more or less than are in the mandatory. I believe they are more. That's a reach code. So even though it's in our zoning, because it impacts anything that impacts energy, has to go to the CEC. Charge stations and parking lots. There's a question about that as well. Signage for EV parking spaces. I don't know that that really does. We have it down. And certain of the fireplace requirements we have are likely, because I actually heat my house with the fireplace, which would reduce energy. So this is the flow one goes through. Don't break your eyes on this. In the chat, I gave you a link. Don't use the first link because you can edit the presentation with the first link. Use the second link. I had to go change it so you can view the presentation. This is the one that doesn't hurt your eyes so much. This is the one that, oh, we don't have it there. Oh, that's where we hid that one. I have another flow that shows in the city, this is what you do in your city before you submit. Then after you submit, this is what you do. There's a number of steps that you follow. And this came out of the code also. This is how you basically file for your reach code. See what's happening. So in 2016, 17 cities had electric encouraged in their reach codes. 11 had solar, 3 had EVs. In 2019, 27 had EVs, 30 had solar. Did I get that right? No, 30 had electric encouraged. All electric are in 26 different cities already in 2019. And electric preferred, and I'll discuss that in a second, is in 22 cities. The major place where greenhouse gases occur, this is not energy, but greenhouse gases occur, is a combination of building operations and the building itself, that is in the process of building. So as we get the energy under control that we use for operating our buildings, this comes out of the state as well. We're seeing, as we start tightening down on that, we've been doing more of that, the embedded energy in the buildings becomes, not the embedded energy, but the embedded energy and the embedded greenhouse gases become more important. Primarily in concrete, also in steel, but we'll see it in a number of other products. And that's where some reach codes are actually showing up. Some cities include in their reach codes, you must use low carbon concrete. We have very few manufacturers low carbon concrete local to us today. It's more expensive. It actually makes stronger concrete, and it actually dries faster. Steve, do this so I can save my voice.
Well, we're really trying to figure out why we would want to do a reach code. And I think we've kind of talked about a lot of these already, as far as it will lower your costs when compared to gas. and you don't have to bring in the gas lines to the house. You save something like $12,000 in construction costs on that. Oh,
Oh, sorry about that. Something popped on my screen. There you go. You're right there.
and yeah, we're all familiar with the electric appliances are a lot less polluting and healthier, especially when it comes to your electric cooking. And we have less risk of fire and combustion from earthquakes and whatnot when our infrastructure has less gas lines in it. And then we're going to be not having near as many emissions from natural gas, that's methane, just in the whole supply chain as we transition away from natural gas to using all electric.
Mhm.
And that has shown to be quite a big contributor to greenhouse gas. The methane is much more potent, and some say that there are, I think, even 3 times the greenhouse gas contributions just from the leakages of the distribution lines of methane.
Yeah. Hey, Alex, would you mute yourself? You're getting feedback.
That was it.
Okay. One of the things I'll point out is that there are a few municipalities now who are attempting to cap off natural gas from given neighborhoods. So besides stopping it at the building, then going further back. If you're interested in why we think methane is important, natural gas is important, you might look at the PBS channel for a series called Out of Our Elements. And in that, there's one on methane, and just see why methane is so important, both because of how it works as a compound in the atmosphere, but also they show where it leaks in our neighborhoods. It's very eye-opening. I'll let you do this too, Steve. I want to get down to the other part.
Well, when we are thinking about the REACH codes, most of them are written in such a way that they look at end uses like space heating, water heating, cooking, and laundry, and prescribe that these have to be either all electric in the case of residential or all electric ready. And so this was what we were kind of initially leaning towards, but I think that as we get further on in the presentation, there are some other avenues that we're looking at in terms of what might we do in a REACH code.
So, and Steve pointed me to this, and I hadn't looked at Santa Rosa. So, you guys know I'm a Sunnyvale person, so I called the planning director there and I said, "What did you do? Why did you do what you did?" And read through their code. It's a simple addition. She said it took them practically nothing to do. This is from Santa Rosa from 2019, so a little bit out of date, but they actually cover something which I thought was an eye opener. Number one was all electric ready ordinance. So now 2022 mandated all electric ready will be mandated. So we would never need to have a REACH code like this. This is why you have to update your REACH code every 3 years, because you might be behind times. Obvious one after that is all electric. If you have an addition, you're making changes, you'd have to be all electric. By the way, if you did an addition or an ADU or something like that, the REACH codes or even Cal Green only happens if the cost is over $200,000 and square footage, I think, is over 1,000 square feet. I saw that someplace in the 2019. Now in 2022, they may change that. But the third option the Santa Rosa looked at, I thought was an interesting one. It's called, or they called it, all electric favored REACH code. And essentially they did this. They said, option A, you can do Cal Green and Tier 1 and comply with that. But if you don't want to do that, you can do Cal Green mandatory, all electric. Now, from a contractor's point of view, if you look at what you have to do in Tier 1, it might be more expensive than going all electric. So if our goal is to eliminate natural gas, having that kind of an option will drive people towards that without mandating that everybody has to be all electric. So that's the kind of option that's available to us. And there's many other kinds of options. This was, like I show on the first line here, mandatory in 2022, but this was part of Santa Rosa's analysis also on what would be the cost, because you have to analyze what the cost would be. What are the greenhouse gas reductions? What are the energy reductions, et cetera? And all of this they needed to do in order to do their filing. Here's the part where, Carrie, I wish I had a chance to talk to you about this ahead of time. I did talk to Steve about it. When I started looking for things, I called Carrie one time because I want to know what kinds of things we can mandate. And I want to know, where was that ordinance about the fireplaces? And you had to do this when you sell the property. And it's someplace I didn't know to look. So the one recommendation, and I saw this in a number of other cities' building codes. In their building code, they took everything that has to do with energy and green building and looked throughout their code and pulled it from every place else. I happen to know, having been a planning commissioner here, that we have things in zoning that actually have to do with energy, like charge stations. So why not add 2 new chapters to our Title 15, which is the building code. I call them 41 and 42. One which would be our green building code, and the second one would be our energy code. And we will put in there those things which we believe are for green building and for energy. That will make it easier for people to look for compliance from the contractor's point of view, from the owner's point of view, and for us, and for the city council, and for the planning commission, because we can look and say, where is that supposed to be, and where is it? And we can read that very quickly. And they're usually pretty short, within 5 pages. And now we have a slide that says, where do we go from here? And I don't have a slide after that. That means I'm open for discussion. Steve's open for discussion. And Steve Brown, do you want to make any comments?
No, I think whatever you guys decide to do is what we're going to do. I think I've made it clear that I am totally against all reach codes. It causes confusion for everybody, builders, homeowners, and no matter what anyone says, they just add cost. We already have the highest cost housing around here, and every reach code we put in comes with a dollar value. How much more is it going to be? So you're affecting the cost of the property, the cost of rents, the cost of everything in the city. So I'm not a person that likes to be out on the bleeding edge of anything, and that's what reach codes are.
And by the way, the reason I asked Steve if he wanted to join us, because I know how all of us are and how we look at these things. And I wanted to make sure that the practical point of view was here as well.
Just for the record, for anyone that watches the video of this meeting, Steve, can you say out loud what your role with the city is?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
I am the acting building official for City of Sebastopol. I am on a contract. I'm through an outside service. I have been here for the last couple years, but my background is in community development. I was a director at a couple other places, and I actually started 35 years ago as a building inspector for a city and worked up from there. So I have some experience, just not a lot in the city of Sebastopol, just the last couple of years.
And I have to tell you, since I'm doing an ADU, he's not a hard ass.
I also was very active with the planning groups statewide, the building groups statewide, sat on a lot of those committees and some of the code adoption committees back in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And I will tell you, as he talked about these pages of 6,000 pages of code back here, I'm not a big proponent of adding more codes ever. Nobody understands these 6,000 pages anymore. It's tough to keep up with. And I think every page we put in, we should take 2 out.
I want to call attention to the fact that I believe Carrie has to leave in about 2 or 3 minutes. And I'm want to give her a chance to say anything she wants to say or bring forward any questions or concerns.
From my perspective,
Can you speak, come closer to your microphone?
Sure, thank you. I don't, Jerry, can you go back to the page of the different paths? I can't, that slide. I think from my perspective, you know, when I built my ADU, it was, did a recommendation put in my house.
It's still really hard to hear you, Carrie.
All right, I changed my speaker.
Oh, there we go. Very good.
All right. From my perspective, you know, we used to have tier 1. I think of the paths that Jerry outlined previously, I think it would be great to at least do the simple version of going to tier 1 and aligning again with the state. I'm really glad to hear that Steve Brown is basically holding people to that. I don't think there was any intent on the past building official to drop that. And Steve, I'm guessing the one exemption that we give of tier 1 is the energy section.
It is.
Because that does require CEC review to include that. I think from what I understand from having been involved with it previously. So my recommendation would be that we recommend tier 1 to get us back on that and give us the teeth. I think we've been doing that as a town since as long as I can remember, you know, and probably Councilor Gurney, you know, could elaborate so much more on the history of this town's importance on that.
And I would even absolutely support putting tier 1 back in, even including Division A 4.2, which is the energy section, putting that code back in if this group wanted to recommend that. It's beyond that I start to have some issues.
Jerry, can you see the hands up? Do you want to just call on the questions or do you want me to call on people?
Yeah, what do you had your hand up first.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. Great presentation. And I think Steve Brown just answered, at least in part, a question I had. The slide, I think it was the slide before this one or second to last, something like that. The two element, these references to the green building code and energy code, it seems like a basic logical thing. I mean, that's not the REACH code, but adding these to the, linking these to so they're findable in the city's code, right? That's what this is suggesting. You don't have any opposition to that, do you, Steve Brown?
Not at all.
Great, okay.
Yeah, I have to point out, Woody, and part of the, Steve Brown's right. Reading part 6 and reading part 11, I went back like a dozen times trying to understand what I was reading and how it all fits together. It is complicated. Reading our own code, it's complicated too, because stuff is all over the place. And I thought a review of our code, our ordinance, our municipal code, it is overdue.
Okay, great. The only other minor, I mean, there's a lot here and I'll study it some more and all that as we discuss it. The only other suggestion I had, and maybe you've done this, but is dialing in with the Building Decarbonization Coalition, which is nearby. Panama Bartholomew leads that, and just would be a great resource if you haven't yet, because this is their bailiwick and they dive into it very deeply and might have some really good recommendations.
Steve Pierce, did you look at it?
No, I have not contacted them, although I've followed their site.
I can put you in touch if you need to be placed in contact.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great if you did that.
Yeah.
Sonali, your hand's up.
Yeah, Jerry, amazing. Thank you for such a thoughtful, thorough presentation. And for going through all of that and still bringing Steve to give his piece and have that, I think just that attention brought to like how challenging our building codes are and how to still hold what we want to do for the betterment of the community, but also have it be more accessible and easeful for everyone. So just thank you for all that. And also thinking about, I guess at the beginning of these codes, just like emphasizing what the community, what the city, what the municipality is doing to meet these goals, so that can also help people digest what we're asking of everyone else.
I don't see any other hands.
I do.
Oh, where?
Phoebe's hand is up, I believe.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Phoebe, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a couple comments and questions. I recently attended a webinar on Reach Code it's a series that I sent to you and Steve, Jerry, by the statewide Reach Codes program. They run Building Decarbonization Coalition, a whole bunch of other groups that's working on it. And a couple of the things that stood out to me in that presentation were that apparently phasing out natural gas lines or capping natural gas lines is not a Reach code, so that does not require CEC approval. It's something that's under local government jurisdiction, if that's something the committee wants to consider. And as well as the importance of talking with nearby jurisdictions if we were to move forward with any Reach code. As I think Steve Brown highlighted, there's some challenges with communicating that and complying with it. And so if we're able to align with what jurisdictions around us are doing, that makes it easier for contractors and others who are trying to comply with the codes. And then also wanted to ask a clarification question on, so Title 24, Part 11, which is the Cal Green, that's what Tier 1 and 2 are under, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, they're only under that. The energy code, the energy code Part 6 is separate.
Okay, and so did you look at or consider were any of those options that you presented expanding on Part 6?
To be honest, I haven't spent a lot of time reading in Part 6. A lot of what you find in this, it's not just do this. I mean, in many cases, it's you need to do 3 out of the 5 of such and such. And then you have to get this, and you have to build up through the sequence. I almost needed, you need to be educated on this. And that's one reason we'll probably rely more and more on Steve about this. We relied a lot on articles of people who do this to say, what was possible and what can they do. On your one point about the phasing out, yeah, the phasing out of the gas in the community, you can do. But if we implement an all electric, you'd have to implement all electric because you don't want to have people have no power, right? No energy for certain things. And so you'd have to implement all electric, but the phasing out and turning off the gas at the city level, at the city limits, does not require, because it's not changing the amount of energy as long as everybody's all electric already. And that's the reason they say that.
I think she was referring to cities like Berkeley that have used police powers instead of the Reach codes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And the local, that fits in line with what we heard from the guys who write Title 24, where they said, we look at what all the communities are doing, and then we start working in that area. We ran the same thing when we put ordinances in Sunnyvale for things that had nothing to do with energy. Mountain View started doing it, Palo Alto did it, San Jose did it. And once you had all of them in the neighborhood, part of the reason that you do that, quite frankly, is so you won't be sued. In the case of Windsor put in an all electric code and removed the all electric code as soon as they got sued because they couldn't afford the lawsuit. Whether they win or lose, they couldn't afford the lawsuit just to do it. So that's the reason for that. By the way, the sequence looks really good. It just a series. It goes out in 9 months. So we were trying to get something together, and we can go to a couple of the meetings. The meeting that I did go to was a 6-hour Title 24 2022 meeting from the CPUC that was reviewing what was happening. They also had from a number of local municipalities and what they were doing. And they had somebody who did work in California before, who's now with the US Department of Energy, and talking about why do we want to do these things and what's important for us to do in all of our buildings, where should we focus?
Thank you.
Anna, yeah.
Yes, Jerry, when you asked for this to be on the agenda, you said this was an informational presentation. There wasn't an action that you were.
That's correct. We're not asking for an action.
On the committee at this time.
Right.
I'd like to make sure that we have a little bit of time for our remaining items. So I'd like to move on, but could you quickly say like what the next steps are for us as a committee in terms of moving this forward in discussion or action?
Well, I don't know if we can do it in this meeting, but if people will look again at the presentation and think about what we covered today, I'd love to have a discussion, and we put on the agenda, what approach should we explore more closely? Do we just do tier 1 and implementation and ordinances? Do we want to do something beyond tier 1? We've given you the information that we know of for 2022 and what's going to happen. I know that there was a large push for all electric, and that's a reach code and require filing and quite a bit of staff time to do that. Even the one that I showed earlier, which is preferred, would require filing to make sure that we can do that. I don't know how much work was required for that, and maybe Carrie can check with Santa Rosa and find out what, because they did put this in place. They did all electric though, didn't they, Steve Pierce?
Correct. Albany went the favored route.
Right. Yeah, Albany went, and I contacted one of the guys I know there, and it wasn't clear to me from his answer what their experience was.
Okay, so we will add further discussion of this topic to, I believe we have space next meeting, if that's okay with you guys, to just continue next time.
Yeah, we want to make sure we got something in front of you, so you knew what we knew so far, and we didn't want to go any further than that, and so we've stopped. Right?
No, this is amazing. Thank you guys so much for the amount of work that, not just putting together this presentation, but the underlying research that went into learning what you needed to learn in order to put this together. It's so much. And Phoebe, I want to give you a chance to speak, and then I will go ahead and hand this over to you to update us on the climate action framework.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just had another question for Jerry. Were you able to connect with BC at the Rcpa about reach codes?
No, we haven't connected with them yet.
Okay, that might be a good next step, or step to take sometime soon, is thinking about what Rcpa is doing and what other jurisdictions are doing.
Yeah, first we want to find out what the committee basically, our goal was to educate the committee to the level we are and get some kind of direction as to what we would like to do as a city. And then we'll go further and find out, how do we do those things and what are other people doing and whether we can jump on it.
Great. Take the ball, Phoebe.
Oh, thank you, Kenna. Yeah, so I'll just provide a quick update on outreach for the framework. So thank you to Jasenia and Dina for being with me at the farmers market last weekend. It was a little slow, but I think it was a good sort of initial outreach event. We did have people sign up for emails, come by and learn about the framework. So I'll be there this weekend with Woody, and then the February 6th Tsunami, if that still works for you. And then Carrie mentioned presentations. I've been giving presentations about the framework. I'm not sure exactly what she wanted me to mention about the Planning Commission, but I was at the Planning Commission last night, got some good input from the planning commissioners. And then the survey is also out now. It's embedded on the website, so you can go check it out there. I'm working on developing a Spanish version next. And then we're getting ready for the community meeting next week, February 2nd. So we had a planning meeting last week, yesterday. I forget when it was, but it was yesterday.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, so looking forward to that. And a reminder to please share about that meeting with anyone who you think might be interested. So I sent out an email with the outreach materials. There's the Facebook posts on the city page, or you can repost yourself. I included a graphic that cites for Instagram. So however you want to share about it, please do. Carrie said we got about 24 people signed up now. So wanting to make sure anyone who's interested can attend. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you. That was very shorter than I thought, given how much you're doing. So thank you for your concision. Next on our agenda is, well, does anyone have, sorry, I forgot to call for public comment on either of the above agenda items. So is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment on anything that we've discussed so far before we move on? All right, moving on. Are any of the working groups have something that they would like to report out to the full committee today? Go ahead, Joshua.
Yeah, thank you. From the sequestration working group front, we are currently organizing to do 2 upcoming compost giveaway days, which are likely to be March 19th, I believe, equinox weekend, at which point we're going to try to get twice as much compost as we got last time and see how long it takes for it to go away. Which would be 80 cubic yards, sort of establish some upper practical limit. Dante is quite supportive. And we'll also do one again Earth Day weekend. So that's later in April. We do want to get one a little earlier for, planting season for avid gardeners and that sort of late spring season. Presuming those 2 go well, we would probably try to do another round in late summer, kind of early fall, the winter gardening planting season. And so far so good. We're just trying to look to smooth it out and gradually figure out how much compost we can possibly give away in season. So.
Woody?
Thanks. So I'll start up for the transportation committee. Alex might have something to add. So we just met yesterday, and it was myself, Alex, and Zeno. And we are still discussing a number of issues like complete streets and bicycling amenities and several other issues, transportation related issues, and looking forward to a joint meeting with the energy group on electric vehicle charging downtown. One of my action items was to circle back to the bird active mobility folks, and I did that immediately, and they are still interested in presenting to the city council, but I've asked them if they'd be willing, and I just wanted to see, I would presume that the CAC would like to have them back to our committee again first before they would go to the city council, and I'm seeing nods. So that's what I said to them. I said, I think that, the CAC would like to have me back again. There's been some miscommunications, and so I'm trying to get some fully fledged answers to the questions that folks had asked way back when, and I know it's been quite a while. They did send some responses, but they're not very thorough. So that was the only issue. So anyway, not next meeting, but maybe meeting after next-ish, something like that. Maybe have them back on the agenda sometime in the not too distant future. Not the next meeting, but maybe a meeting following. I saw Alex thumbs up. Anything to add, Alex?
No, I think you said it all, Mr. Woody. I think you covered it for the most part. I think I'm excited to meet with the energy group and talk more about figuring out ways we can get more charging in the Sebastopol area.
Great. Jerry?
Just a short report from the energy group. one meeting we had. We met with representatives or staff from Marin Clean Energy. Thanks. And when I saw Woody speaking, it suddenly occurred to me, Woody helped us set up a meeting with Marine Clean Energy because we knew that they were doing community power projects. And we wanted to find out what roadblocks they're running into, how they're trying to do that, what's being done. So we had about a 1-hour meeting. I have some notes on it. I hope everybody else did on what they're able to do. Mainly, the reason for having the meeting was we didn't hear a lot from Jeff Cyphers for Sonoma Clean Power on this. And we thought the same kinds of efforts would be possible in Sonoma County as well. They're both doing it for families that don't have a lot of resources, but they're also doing it just as community energy. And they're doing some interesting things in trading energy as far away as in the Central Valley in order for people to subscribe who are renters and whatever else. It's challenging. I think it's an area for us to continue to explore and to find out how we can do community energy in Sonoma County as well. And I do think it will ultimately be driven not by Sebastopol, but by Sonoma Clean, Sonoma, just lost it, Sonoma County Power. Is that what it is?
Sonoma Clean Power.
Yeah.
Clean Power, thank you. It's been a long day. I've been using a hammer and crowbar and having neighbors complain to me about the noise at 7 o'clock in the morning. So, sorry. Anyway, that was an interesting meeting, and I'm sure we'll follow up on it. Oh, yeah.
Great. Any other working groups that want to report out? No. Deborah? You're muted.
Thank you. This isn't a report out. I just had a comment about Woody, sorry, not Woody's, but the compost, the working group that's putting on, Joshua, the compost. I'm just wondering, and this isn't the time to talk about it, but if this committee has any interest in, since we're doing a compost giveaway on Earth Day, trying to use Earth Day as a greater awareness and putting on a larger event. So that was all.
That sounds like a great thing for the outreach education group to take up.
One thing that's notable about that weekend, sorry to interject, is just that Saturday is the parade. So it's kind of Apple Blossom Festival as well. So kind of a great time to think about some kind of presence, put the word out.
Thank you.
Sonali?
Hang on. Oh, I remember. Yes, not a working group report, but was wondering or wanting, I mentioned this to you, Kenna, if we could have some sort of social hour. That I know it has to be recorded or whatever that was, but to deepen in our relationships. But after Sarah's sharing of what the council did, feel inspired that we could do some hybrid thing of that. And yeah, just wanted to put that out on the
Some kind of retreat
on the virtual table.
Yeah. Jerry?
I wanted to go back to the compost for 1 second. So this is turning out to be successful. And from the South Bay, this has to do with the contract that we have with, I forgot who our contract is with picking up waste, but the waste management company. The waste management company in the South Bay, basically part of the contract was they would keep a pile of compost, and anybody who was a resident could come by and pick up the compost whenever. And it was a sustained thing. So it was there all the time. I wonder if when we have renegotiate the contract, whether we can work something into that. So instead of being an event, we have a place. And that's a place that everybody can go to and pick up compost, which is created probably from the waste that we're supplying.
Sonali, is your hand still up, or is that a residual hand? Go ahead, Joshua, you want to answer the question?
Yeah, just to respond to that one. personally, I like that notion a bunch. What we found when we did the single event that we've done so far was that we stated a 1 yard maximum, which is, kind of a lot for a household to pick up and move. And we had a bunch of small farmers showing up with big old trailers, kind of ready to take as much as they possibly could. So there was a little bit of fielding in there. And given that Sebastopol is so close to farms and vineyards and dairies and all that sort of business, there may be an outer limit at which it becomes a little unfair for citizens if it's getting swooped on. So not to disregard that notion. I think this year we're going to try to see how much further we can expand it. And if we don't find a limit on that, then we keep going.
Okay.
Great. Any members of the public want to, go ahead, Dina.
And the compost we're getting is Zero Waste Sonoma, which is the agency that oversees all the waste, has a deal with the county to provide a certain amount of compost coming back into the county. And we just ask and we get some of that compost. So in a way, it's a little bit like what you're saying, Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that they could have a local drop that would be part of the contract as well. They have to bring it. They probably don't even charge us for bringing it back, but we have to ask for it. But maybe we can put it in the contract that says, hey, once a week you're going to drop so many yards.
Yeah, it's not with Rcpa, it's with the quasi-government agency, and it's for the whole county. So right now, this is how the different jurisdictions are getting compost from the fact that we don't have an in-county compost facility.
Yeah. The need tends to be really seasonal too. There's like a big need every time you're planting, but you're not planting year long. So I think it'll have a little bit of a episodic quality.
And being there provided us with a lot of PR, getting our committee name out there. So it served a purpose so far, having an attended event.
And once we have our banners, maybe we'll be able to use them at the compost events as well as the framework events. We'll see.
Yeah, there is a sign that you're definitely welcome to use.
So I want to be respectful of our time. We have 6 minutes remaining. Are there any members of the public that want to comment on the working group reports? Steve Pierce, you're our member of the public. So he's not saying anything. So we're moving on to our chair reports. Joshua is going to be representing us at the something, but I think we'll table your report out about that until next time. It's the CAAC, which is the Rcpa and the SCTA, and he'll explain it when he reports out on it. But a couple of little things. We did mention today that there's a March 1st council presentation, and funding will be part of that. I think probably we want to have more discussion with energy about whether we are going to be wanting to bring forward a big energy proposal at that presentation March 1st. Our next one will be 3 months after that. Our scheduled presentations, we can always ask to be on the agenda between, but that's the easiest time to bring something forward. A couple of other things that are kind of going on in terms of our committee is that our original kind of appointments, et cetera, were there was the zero waste, not zero waste in words, but looking at waste streams and looking at procurement, those kind of things. Some duties that have been taken by the Zero Waste Committee that really belong in this bigger sustainable Sebastopol bucket, and particularly in some of them having to do with carbon emissions. So Zero Waste is a staffed committee that is running from the city, appointed by the city, but they are losing some momentum. They've kind of got their thing going. It doesn't necessarily make sense city resource wise to leave that as a staffed committee. And it might make sense to bring them into our committee as a working group with some appointed members. So they're going to be talking to their members about how they would like to see that happen, if they would like to see that happen. And then we'll be bringing it to this group with a kind of fleshed out proposal of what that would look like to merge these groups and hopefully not add a lot of time to anyone, but definitely help the city staff out. Another thing in our original mandate was that we appointed a rights of nature representative, which is held by Sonali right now. And she is interested in bringing that perspective that the council did request to be on the committee a little bit more forward in our meetings by doing something that she is terming a weather report. And so we're going to pilot that next meeting to have Sonali present us with a weather report as a kind of little intermission breathing space in the middle of the meeting. And Jasenia is going to bring a kind of mindfulness grounding exercise to us as our inspiration next time and talk a little bit about that and bringing those perspectives into our group per our original mandate. So I think Jasenia is going to do that. I hope I'm not throwing you under the bus, Jasenia. So that's all I have for the chair reports. I believe I've gotten quite a bit of input from members regarding the next meeting agenda for REACH codes, putting for further discussion of REACH codes next time, putting the bird presentation or re-presentation on in one of the February meetings. And I have 2 hands up, so I'll recognize Woody and then Jerry.
Thanks. I'll try to be real quick. If folks remember, I participated in a Sonoma County Climate Mobilization meeting. I think it was back in September, and this committee had expressed interest in that, and I gave some sort of informal reports on what was discussed. They, in the late last year, hired a coordinator for the county, so Emmett Hopkins. If folks recognize that last name, has been hired, and he's the organizer there. And I've been engaged with him on some county related matters, and just wondering, would the committee like to have for a future agenda item, to have Sonoma County Climate Mobilization present? And by the way, I'm going to drop in the link here in the chat here, the link to Climate Mobilization. It's not just a Sonoma County thing. This is linked to, backed by a nationwide, effort. So anyway, just wanted to see if the committee wants to have that on a future agenda, and I can invite them. 10-minute presentation, 15-minute presentation. Seeing some nods.
I see nods.
Okay, thanks.
Jerry?
I just want to go back to the one item you talked about and merging the committees. One of the roles I played was as sustainability commissioner in the city of Sunnyvale, and we included all of those aspects in the one committee. And when we started this committee, I actually asked that question: why don't we merge? Because we would reduce staff time and then we increase coordination at the same time. Sounds like a great idea, and we should look at any place else. It would be a way to put the funnel there. And it's not just a funnel for the community, but it's also a funnel for the staff, because you'll often find that the staff may be staffing differently as well. And this way it coordinates better.
Yeah, thank you. They're going to be meeting on the 7th of February, and then we'll bring their recommendation. Lisa.
Wait, and the last point on that, change the name of the committee then.
We will discuss more when it's on the agenda. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hannah, maybe you can stay on a couple of minutes later and we can set up a time to discuss planning for the next council meeting. That be okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
As long as we have less than a quorum to stay to talk about that, then we can stay after the meeting. Yes, Councilmember Gurney, and then we're going to close up shop for today.
Thank you. Say, I very much appreciate the formality of being called council member, but you're sure welcome, any of you, to call me Sarah in a meeting like this. I wanted to appreciate you, Kenneth, for raising that issue of the merger of the two groups. Diana and I have perceived the situation as it is unfolded through the months and particularly the years of COVID. And we suggested the merger to Sunny as the leader of her group and Joshua and Kenna as the facilitators of this group. And I'm optimistic that it seems like a good idea because you're not feeling resistant right now, but it bears further conversation. Also, I wanted to suggest that y'all check in about the March 1st agenda for the council. We had a very significant item that has already been postponed from the earlier meeting that was taken up with the parking ordinance. That item is moved to March 1st. It was the second big item on one agenda. Now it's a really big item on March 1st. So it might be good to check in with Carrie about just how much you want to engage the council on a night where there's a hot political item like that. It's the Huntley Square project of the micro units up off of Bodega where there is the gap, the incomplete street.
All right. I am just want to acknowledge we have gone past our time. So we will adjourn this meeting, I think, without a review of action items, because we're all just going to go do our work now and come back next time.
Doesn't Alex's dog have something to say?
And Alex's dog has something to say. So I am going to end this meeting. I'm going to end the recording, and we will not discuss any more business until we have less than a quorum present.
Thank you for a good meeting. Bye-bye.
I think maybe